We're already laughing. We've even started and we're laughing. Hello, welcome to this week's Dangerous Dialogue. This week I am joined by the immensely wonderful and terribly hilarious humans, Zoe Jade Frieslich and Matt Pryor Morgan. They are going to introduce themselves in just a second. This week we're talking about gender and gender identity and everything that comes in that big box of what gender is. And that's very exciting. It seems like these subjects are so heavy, but we're very excited about kind of trying to unpack what all these things do mean. What they do mean. They do be meaning gender. And there we go, right it is. I'm trying to represent, there's a pride flag today. Thank you, Amazon. Although they don't have, apparently, the progressive pride flags that are sort of, I guess, a more updated version of what this older one is. You can't get very quickly. It takes like a month to be delivered. Not what we're here to talk about, Tom. Let's shoot over to somebody else that's not me to tell them, to tell all the wonderful viewers who you are and what your gig is, what you do. Go on, Zoe.
Oh, no. Hi, I'm Zoe. I identify as a cisgendered she/her woman. As we're talking about gender, I think that's a good place to introduce myself. I currently am just dealing with being a parent. I don't do much else than that, pandemic life and whatnot. So yeah, Matt, on you go.
Hello everybody. I am Matt. I identify as non-binary since we are talking about gender identity. I am a fresh new drag artist as well, or soon to be drag icon for the whole world to see. Yeah, that's basically me. If you want to go find me, it is at that Queen Bev on Instagram. Please.
I'm on it right now.
Oh, lovely.
That's it. We're doing it for the views.
We're here for.
Amazing. I didn't mention, but everybody else did, and I feel like it's the right place, as you say, to start this conversation. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a cisgendered male. And obviously we have a lot of different perspectives here and different genders. There's not every gender under the sun represented here, which is something that I'm sure we will note several times in this conversation. But we're kind of trying to unpack what that is. Part of the ideas of these dangerous dialogues is to make sure that everybody can have these conversations, just because, the little fluffy things that are everywhere in summer, that's what that is. Just because you don't identify as a non-cisgendered gender, doesn't mean that you can't have this conversation. There was a lot of affirmative, negative words in there, but we're trying to encourage people to have this conversation. So where we should start is, I kind of would love to know from everyone's perspective what gender is to them, what gender means. That's a huge topic, but just, I guess, sort of briefly what your kind of thoughts are on that. So I'm going to shoot back to you again.
Oh, me, wonderful, yes. So being cisgendered, I've never really felt like I've had to concentrate on my gender or reveal my gender or feel anything really about my gender. So it's not meant a lot to me during the years. It's just kind of been what it is. I'm a woman, like no one ever questions it or thinks twice about it or anything like that. But if we're talking, like proper terms, for me, gender has always been a social construct. It's, sex is sex. You've got your biologicals, you've got that, but gender is a social construct and it's of the mind. It's not of biological.
Right.
So for me, that's kind of where I stand with gender. I think that it's wonderful that we now live in a place where people can open up about all genders. There's not just two. That's all I'm saying. Final. There's not just two, and that's a fact. But I see it from a viewpoint as an ally rather than of someone who knows how it is to be more in between the spectrum than at one end.
Nice.
That's all I've got to say on that. That's the tea. Okay, bye.
That was absolutely fabulous of a way to put it, and a way that I hope that all gendered people would be able to have this conversation, because obviously to me, gender is, I could talk about this for about who knows how long. So gender to me, honestly, I believe it is social construct as well. 100% believe that. I believe that the way that gender has evolved and changed over the whole years, especially recently, and it's been going on for a very long time now, even way back in ancient times, but that's also another topic. Focus what gender is to me. I believe I live outside the binary of gender, that sex and gender are two completely different things. Also, for myself, I identify as non-binary, but also gender non-conforming, because I believe that I don't believe in what society has put gender as.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to get across. So yeah, I just don't believe I live in between the two binaries of what a male and a female are. So that is what gender is.
Or what we're made to believe male and female.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So I believe I can never comfortably say to myself, like, I am a man or I am a woman, even depending what kind of parts I do have or don't have or whatever.
Fantastic, absolutely. I think, you know, we're all very much of the same mindset here, which is lovely. But there is a lot of people, I think, who maybe don't understand the terminology of gender as a construct, as a social construct. So I kind of want to break that down and what it actually means. So I guess as humanity, when we've developed over the years, we've decided things. So things didn't just come out of nowhere. Somebody went, oh, this is what that is. So it was sort of decided that because of what sexual organs you have, what body parts you have, you would be split into one of three genders, whether that's male, female, or intersex. And I think that is already so much more information than I think so many people even know about gender. I think intersex as a gender is something that for some reason people don't necessarily think about or talk about. And I think that's kind of terrible. Even in the queer community, I wouldn't say that being intersex is something that I would have known about actively until I purposely kind of did that research. I don't know about anyone else.
Definitely not. I wouldn't have known about it unless, like, if I looked at the alphabet, the gay alphabet or the queer alphabet, I wouldn't have known what that I meant until I was like, but what does that mean? And then looked it up, obviously.
Yeah. It's interesting, when I was a kid, I remember being told about a very distant member of our family who was a hermaphrodite, which I guess is the outdated term now for what we would call intersex, as in somebody that has both genitalia, to kind of break that down further. So I think at its core, we already know that there are more than two genders, even if you're just kind of breaking it down to sexual organs. I don't think it's that complex to understand. And in terms of that, saying it as a construct, it's like, well, we've decided that. That's just something we've decided. And people can change their minds. Of course they can. Yeah. On anything in the world, you go, okay, well, actually, our point of view has changed because X, Y, Z. So why can't we do that with gender? Yeah.
100%. I mean, it's funny that you bring up the word hermaphrodite, because I've completely forgot about it until this very moment. But that time when everyone thought that Lady Gaga was...
yeah. That's exactly what I just thought about as well, as soon as it was mentioned.
When she was on that motorbike, she got off and she had some kind of wardrobe thing, and then that all popped off.
Some women just have big pusses. It's just a thing. And okay, some people, they're just quite prominent.
It's not their fault that they have a one vagina and a heavy flow. Do you know what I mean? So talking about like more than three genders. I mean, ever since ancient times, like indigenous people, there is seemed to be like a third gender where there is a celebration for the people that do identify with that third gender, and they have a celebration about it, and it's all like actually quite a great thing that they can have that celebration, and that stuff like that isn't recognized. So like I think we just need to not say like, oh, we need to break the gender system, because some people do actually believe in it, like yourselves. If you identify as cis male or female, that's great, like that's what you believe in, that's what you should identify as and express to the world. But sometimes I think we just need to use the right terminology of like, we need to look maybe past the gender binary, or just basically look beyond the gender binary so we can all like live harmonious together. To be a massive hippie, but yeah.
Just a massive hippie universe. I love that.
Basically.
I will do that so many times during this, so I apologize now.
Always, do you know, it's somebody told me that's the international bisexual symbol, just going like that, because I know so many different bisexual people that all react like that to things, where they're like, yeah, cool, and apparently that's a thing. I don't know if that's right. You know, it's that's a construct.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't confirm that from I'm heterosexual.
Sure.
You know, I just like doing it.
Everyone loves the throw peace sign. That's all we can do.
Yes, we do. But that's the thing. If we do it here and we flip it the other way around, it's bad. It's like, can't do that. Well, I mean, we totally can. You know, here it's like, no, naughty.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when we're kind of breaking down what gender is. I think for me, there are three aspects to gender, which is gender identity, which is sort of something that we've focused on so far, which is I identify as this. There's your kind of gender expression. There's other ways, I guess, of saying that, but the way that you physically present. And what have I missed? The outside, the inside, and then there's sex. So I guess that would be how most people would have defined gender until now, which we've talked about, kind of your anatomy is what would define your sex. And I think you can kind of mush the three together, but that's where we get kind of very gray areas, and it's actually better to kind of define it in these three ways.
Yes, because people tend to confuse sex with gender and mush them into one and be like, no, like if you're a certain sex, like that's what you are and that's what you will always be. They forget that sex, yes, is the biological standard of it, but there's so much more gender, and they're just two completely separate things. Like you can biologically be a female, but have never felt like a female in your entire life. It's different, and people need to start to understand that you've got to separate what sex is to what gender is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm obviously like male presenting, but ever since like I was a kid, I would always think like, oh, but I don't feel like a boy necessarily or a man. I don't, and then I'd be like, but what if I was a girl? And I remember distinctly having these thoughts and being like, just confused, absolutely confused, because I was like, I don't fit into how the boys are or how the girls are. I'm just like somewhere, nowhere really, that I didn't even know about. And it wasn't until recently that I found out about all this stuff about being non-binary and what gender identity is, and it all comes from within, and it's not what is presented on the outside. So it's just kind of like separating the two to be able to like understand what all of this is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talked about this last week, about sort of that period of exploration that you have in life, which there is no specific age that you will go through. Most people experience that through their teenage years when their hormones are kind of going nuts and doing whatever they're doing.
Does that stop? Because I'm waiting for that to stop.
It's like when they say you're going to have spots when you're a teenager.
Mine came in my 20s.
Oh, I won't know. I won't know.
But it's exactly the same. The hormones don't stop, and you don't stop exploring in and exploring what you are. So, as you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. Is that, you know, you're allowed to explore your sexuality through life, and most people generally accept that now. Why can't you explore your gender as well? You know, it's not to say that if you go and like Zoe, sorry, it wasn't Zoe, it was Matt that said that you have decided that this is the gender that suits you and this is the position on that spectrum that works for you. Great, that's wonderful. But you have to have that kind of, it's not even open-mindedness, just accept that other people might still be going on that journey and discovering where they sit on that spectrum.
Yeah, and even if you don't like tend to understand it, or like at the end of the day, what effect does it have on your life? What other people perceive themselves as, or feel as they are, or identify as? What effect does it really have on your life at the end of the day? It's not going to change anything. You're not going to, like, you know, suddenly blow up, or, you know, like an atom bomb's going to come out of nowhere and, you know, life is just over because someone's decided that, you know what, no, I am femme presenting, but I feel like it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt you. Like, get over it. Like, deal with it.
100%. Yeah, it's just basically just letting people live how they want to live. And basically, I mean, you can hate someone for having a terrible personality and you don't get along with them, but you shouldn't hate someone because of how they identify and how they feel about anything. And saying that, if you can't also tell people how they should feel because of how they do look. I think it was said actually on Drag Race that because the two non-binary people on Drag Race, they had a conversation, and it was Bimini and Ginny Lemon. And they even said, like, it just so happens that both the non-binary people here having this conversation on Drag Race both had yellow mullets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every non-binary person has to have a yellow mullet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just obviously how people present themselves can also differ to how they feel on the inside. I definitely know that during my day-to-day life, this is how I like to present myself, and this is how I go about day to day. But then the exploration through drag and stuff is also an exploration of my gender and how I also feel about gender. And you soon realize that I don't come out as like female presenting through my drag. It's got a lot of female attributes, but it also has a lot of alien attributes, and that's how I feel about gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it I said earlier? I said, because you were saying about putting our pronouns like in, and I was just, yeah, I'm just an alien who turns up sometimes. That's literally what I said about me.
Honestly, you've seen me next week, Tom, like just rocking up. I'll have a blue face and I'll be ready to rock. And that's how I feel about gender, and that's how I want to present myself. So yeah.
I mean, even gender within drag, like for so long it was just drag was males presenting as females for entertainment. Yeah. But now, even within drag itself, like the gender identity and the gender presenting and all that, you've got your drag kings, you've got your non-binary who present as drag, you've got those who like will wear beards, you know, milk, got to love milk. You know, it's changed so much just within drag itself, never mind in like just normal society. Obviously you'll know better than I do, I just watch it. I've seen like the shift in like how drag is with gender identity as well. how acceptance has kind of come through in like the different variants of drag.
Definitely. I mean, I think as gender has progressed, we'll probably get onto this next week, Tom, but as gender has progressed, like drag also has progressed with it, because it is an art form based on gender expression, maybe. And where drag actually comes from, like obviously it comes from Shakespearean times and like men being dressed as girls, which is kind of the abbreviation where I think drag comes from. So obviously,
oh my god, it makes that just clicked for me.
Oh,
light bulb moment.
And like as gender has evolved and transformed and become something else, like obviously drag has gone along with it. So drag has just turned into an art form now that everyone can express what they want to express, and whether that be gender or not, who knows? Like it's all up to the person, which gender identity should be.
I think that's at the core of everything that we're going to talk about tonight and through the whole of Pride Month. Ultimately, it's person-centric. Like it's about the individual more than anything else, because their experience is their experience, and you can't tell them what that is. And you know, we're all sitting talking about things that we've experienced and people that we know, but ultimately it is your own lived experience that you speak about. I want to talk about something that you mentioned there about kind of drag being an expression of gender. And as you said, Matt, I'm sure we're going to talk about it lots more next week when we're talking about drag. But I just want to highlight, because it's Pride Month and I feel like everybody should know her, Marsha P. Johnson, who is arguably the reason that Pride happens, who was a trans woman and a drag queen. She started the whole reason that we're even having this conversation at the moment. And it's interesting that we're kind of talking about this progression of like gender and drag going alongside each other, but it's always been there. Like since Stonewall, since the 80s, she was a trans woman.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to uncover with that. There is also, obviously, she's a great woman, and obviously, the community back then, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but what I've read, like, people had to come together and be able to express themselves in all kinds of ways. So I guess drag might have been an expression for them, or it just would have been a freeing moment for themselves all to be able to express themselves in the way that they wanted. And drag is just a great way to do that. So yeah, and I'm just thankful for those people to be so brave, so we can all basically sit here and have these conversations, because otherwise without it we probably wouldn't be in the greatest of situations now. So it's really important to recognize why we are having these conversations and why we do have this month right now. So yeah.
So agree. I also kind of just want to touch on, because there's so many things that we kind of niggled at but never like delved in, so I'm just kind of picking up on things that people have said. I think it's interesting to talk about how that expression comes over for people, and I think, Zoe, it might be interesting to hear your perspective on this. There are terms as kids that we all got. I mean, we're all much of a muchness age-wise. And we're so beautiful. Zoe's definitely not like 6 years younger than me, but anyway. Can
you tell?
I wonder, because you must have had the term tomboy shouted at you before, Zoe, because I think you are a tomboy. When
I was a bit younger, like I did quite like more like primary school age. I enjoyed, like playing football, getting rough with lads. Well, I'm never gonna say that again. I didn't stop. Like I did enjoy my football and playing sports and all that, but it was only ever really primary school times. Once I kind of like got into like primary 7, a bit older, like I was into my theatre, I was wearing my makeup and all that, and I never really heard it after that. So I didn't get tomboy a lot. But even with Riley, like with my little boy, like you can tell that gender and gender identity and the social construct of it starts from the socialization aspect of it. It starts from the parents and what they instill and what they believe is gender, because I'm guilty of it too. When I was pregnant, for some reason I was like, it's going to be a boy, and the first thing I did was look at all the blue clothes. That is the first thing I did. I went and looked at all the blue boy clothes, or what was perceived as the boy clothes, because I was like, that's just what I thought, that if it's a boy, that's what he's gonna wear. Like I never even looked at the pink or the girly or like even like the leggings. It's just not what I would do. So I'm not any better than anyone else. I was totally guilty of it myself. I still am. Like I will go in and not be bothered about what he's wearing. Like I'll go and I'll look for the shirts and I'll look for the jeans and I'll look for the stuff that you expect to see a little boy in. However, on the flip side of that, I know that my generation are the ones who are like teaching the children, like it's not just boy and girl anymore. Riley knows that non-binary exists. Riley knows that transgender exists. Riley knows it's not just boys and girls, because he will ask me about, the penis and the vagina. And he'll say, so just girls have this. And I was like, well, no, it's a bit more complicated than that nowadays. Like it's not only just girls that have vaginas, it's not only just boys that have penises. There's a lot more in between that, but you'll learn when you're older and you'll get it when you're older. So I went off on a tangent, but
it was such a great tangent to hear. You just accused yourself of being part of the problem and saying, I've not brought my child up in the way that we're talking about, but you totally have. Everything that those conversations that you're having with your child and that he's asking are fantastic, and that just shows that we're breathing a generation that know and care and are interested, and that's fantastic.
It's just the being aware, like even just them knowing that it's not just male and female now. It's not. And if they know that from a young age, that's where a lot of the biases come from. And that's where a lot of like the hatred and the unknown comes from. It's a fear of the unknown and something we're not used to. So if they know from a young age, like, hey, this is a thing, it's just going to be like, okay, cool. It's just normal. Like, it's just as it should be. But we are all like, especially those who don't go through what non-binary, what gay, what like those of us who are in the majority, as we would say, like myself, we don't understand it because it was never seen as a thing. We were never taught about it. And even those who do go through it, they take so long to be able to come to terms with it and be comfortable with it because it was never a thing. And it's had to be something that was discovered along the way. Whereas now, these are things and we can teach them to our kids and the next generation, and hopefully that'll like take away from some of the what's the word,
biases.
Some of the biases and some of the prejudices that do go along with these labels that should not exist in the first place, and that's the tea.
Amazing.
And you know what, you can't have tea without some cake.
So wonderfully put. I think this is something I'm trying to hint at, is I think a lot of people feel like this is new and it's different, and the reality is that it's not. Matt, you talked about historical kind of influences I said a while back there with regard to gender. Is that anything that you can elaborate on?
I don't honestly know too much on that kind of thing. I do just know that specific Indigenous factoid there. I know there's a lot of stuff in Eastern countries, or is it Eastern countries? Again, I'm not going to comment.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
But there's loads of other things out there if you just go and research. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe I should have done that before. I'm just saying it is out there for people to go.
But if you look like in the glam rock times, you know, the times of like David Bowie and all that, how much androgyny there was, how much like gender bending and all this there was, like there was just so much like flowing there, and that you can see that physically, and no one batted an eyelid. No one was, well, I mean, there was probably a few people bothered. There's always people bothered about things, but it wasn't seen the way it's seen now if people do bend the rules of gender. Which just, it was cool because they were rock stars.
100%. Yeah. I mean, to elaborate on like kind of going back in time, there's a very, very famous, I'm going to say psychologist and philosopher, Judith Butler. She is a psychologist and philosopher for gender identity and gender expression that goes back to about 1970. So my mental maths is not good. So what is that, 40 years now? 40?
To me, it's still like 30 years ago. I'm not gonna lie.
I just thought it was in 2010. What? So even
it's like 50. Oh my god, 50 years ago. Oh,
so that's 50 years ago now, but we've only started to come to terms with the fact that all this binary of gender is kind of getting looked beyond. So why has it actually taken that 50 years when all the stuff has been out there?
Yeah.
A very, very long time now. So
it's interesting because I mean, to kind of elaborate on the indigenous aspects of this that you mentioned, I guess cultures that are so much older than ours, in Australia and Canada and other kind of countries with Aboriginal tribes and kind of much older people than us, had two-spirited people that were not one or the other. And in the LGBT queer alphabet, what was it that Charlotte called it last week, like mafia, whatever the fuck it's called, queer mafia, whatever, there is a 2S in it, which the plus kind of stands for a lot of the other letters that we don't conventionally see after LGBT, and the 2S is two-spirited. So non-binary or two-spirited has been in there for a very long time. It's not new. You just see a plus, you don't see the person.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's been a long time for some people to come to terms with it, and it's only just coming out now. Then people who do identify in that way can finally see it somewhere and be like, oh, that is me. So
yeah,
obviously two-spirited has been since like ancient times. I say ancient times, but or whenever it was, I'm not exactly entirely sure, but a long time ago. Non-binary is just a new term for how people identify and how people want to express themselves and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, Zoe, you mentioned kind of androgynous, which is one of the A's in the queer alphabet. That I guess that kind of 80s glam rock period, as you mentioned, and even people in kind of culture over the last 10 years, like Ruby Rose, I couldn't even say her name there, to me is like the poster child of androgyny.
Yeah.
Because she looks so perfectly feminine.
They are the perfect combination. Like, they do make me question my sexuality sometimes, I have to say. Like, although I am heterosexual, like, they are just the perfect combination of the masculine and the feminine. And I'm just like, question how I'm feeling right now.
And it was interesting when she was on Orange is the New Black, because I remember so many people kind of being like, wow, this is like the most attractive person I've ever seen. And it's, I guess, it's that kind of physical showing of what you can be. And it's so interesting that I don't actually know what Ruby Rose's pronouns are, kind of played with that and played on people's perception of who Ruby Rose was. and we loved it. How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, for me and my toxic history, it was definitely a bit bad girl act as well. That helped a lot.
In prison,
yeah, it's just you know, I mean, I love characters like Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know what I mean? Like I just the dark kind of brooding and the, you know, the leather and just anyone like that. I'm like, yes, thank you. I'll have that.
We're getting a deep insight into your sex life, Zoe.
I wish I was, because it's been a while.
Oh wow, this got
sorry. I'm so sorry. I have no filter.
Sorry for Matt.
Yeah, I mean, just to go on top of that, it's great that people could see that in this kind of androgynous thing that has happened on Orange is the New Black, but it's also great to realize like that's also people have played with kind of like masculine and feminine elements throughout history and stuff. Now, even if you think about in recent times, like Harry Styles wearing dresses and skirts, everyone's a bit like, whoa, what? But
so nice.
Yeah, it is great. I love Harry Styles. I won't lie. That's a bit of insight into my sex life. But when they wear dresses and skirts, everyone was like questioning what he was. I mean,
yeah, they started questioning like his gender identification, his sexual orientation, just because he was wearing things that aren't perceived as masculine.
Exactly. Right. And
don't mean shit, hun.
Yeah, and it's like, why are people so concerned with those two things, with if he is a man or not, or what his sexuality is if he wears a dress or skirt? We've got to separate ourselves from clothes and whatnot, but that's another conversation. But to realize that throughout pop history, really, and even in the media, like a lot of people have been doing that for a very long time. And why is it only taken one white, I believe is male, I don't know what his gender identity is, but why is it taking that one white male for it to like blow up so much? Like Prince was doing it, and like we said,
David Bowie was doing it.
Yeah, and like Marsha P. Johnson was doing it, and blah blah blah. And so it's also good to have a look back and see like how or why people haven't like caught up with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
For now, yeah.
Zoe, you're obviously a parent, and you hinted earlier about
I am? What?
Surprise!
Did I miss something?
Oh no! You know, you kind of hinted about education being a bit of the letdown, and I just wanted to share. I'm not going to share screen because that just makes me feel like I'm on Zoom and don't want to feel like I'm on Zoom. But I've got up on my iPad here a teaching tool called the Genderbread Person, sorry. And I remember this from when I was at school, and I am 27. And
I'm old.
You know, not 30 yet. But this was a teaching tool when I was at school. I actively remember this. So all the things that we are talking about in this conversation feel like they're very new and fresh, but are not. They've been around for so long. So this is the Genderbread Person, and I just think it's so wonderful. We'll cite the kind of sources in the chat after this, but it kind of talks about the brain there being the identity, how you feel, the attraction being the heart, that would refer to your sexuality, your sex being this kind of the body parts down here, and this bit over here. Oh no! Almost dropped the iPad. That was almost the world. This bit over here being your gender expression, and to clarify, there is a line that goes all the way around the Genderbread Person that talks about expression. It's not just the armpit. I was in a training. Yeah, and it does look like it just your armpit.
I
this
have
is your
never
gender
seen that
expression.
before. I've honestly never seen that before.
Really?
Never seen it
I've
before.
never seen it either.
That's
We're just
that
obviously
is-
uneducated, Matt. That's what it is.
Well, I think it shows we were all educated in different bits of the UK, I guess. Like I mean, you're what, like an hour and a half north of where I was educated, Zoe,
Mhm.
and I guess Matt considerably further south
Yeah,
to where we were.
Yeah.
So I wonder. I mean, these are things that are widely available as teaching tools,
Mhm.
and I think that outlined it so wonderfully, regardless of your age.
Yeah,
just a picture
no,
like that.
I
to
love
be like,
that.
boom, 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 that's it.
That's the thing though as well. Like even in sex education schools, when I was in school, because I'm a little bit younger, not by much. Like we were just taught about like male, female, and then in regards to like orientation, we were just taught about heterosexual relationships. We were never taught about any others. So
Yeah.
it seems to be something we just stray away from, and people seem to be like really angsty about those sort of relationships being talked about in schools to children, even though they're very normal and happen all the time. Like it's why are we still scared to talk about like the identities and the orientation? Why is that still such a fear when it's everywhere? It's just as normal as a cisgendered heterosexual relationship now. So why isn't it being shown the way we've been shown just because that's been the normal for all these years? We need to start moving towards like showing it more in schools, teaching it to our kids. Like I was saying before, like teaching it means it's not strange to everyone else, which means people aren't going to pick up on it the way that they do right now. Every time I speak tea, I'm going to drink tea.
It's definitely 100% what you're saying, and the only thing that we can do is to educate and to do this with our kids and whoever that we come across. Unfortunately, yesterday I actually had my first homophobic and transphobic encounter.
Nice, lovely. We love that.
While I was working as well, and I had to serve people very nicely still while they were having these conversations. And it's just sad to see that in the world there is still so much homophobia, transphobia, and any other phobia really. They probably you can throw in there. So we have to like teach our kids to the truth of the matter, so they can grow up, so there won't be a stigma about it, like people won't be prejudiced about it. So when people do get to a certain age and when they can't be taught anymore, because we've all had, I think, uncomfortable conversations with our elders, especially I know with my grandparents, I've been trying to tell them, hello, you can't be racist anymore and you can't say that.
Yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how many Zoom calls I've had like that. Love you guys, but
definitely. So yeah, we just have to, like you said, keep on teaching our children the truth about the matter, and hopefully that it all worm out in generations to come.
And I think, sorry, go on, Zoe.
I was just going to say, like, another thing, this is please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think, you know, like transphobia, homophobia, why is it so distinctly related to like arachnophobia? And like,
yes,
like the fear
exactly what I was about to say.
Is it actually? Like,
I despise the term homophobia and transphobia because it validates.
Why are we scared?
It calls them phobias. It says you have a rational fear. It's not rational.
It's not
irrational.
You're people.
I sound like I'm on my high horse and I'm preaching here, but I am. I'm genuinely annoyed about it. I don't feel like it's fair to justify people's hatred of something by saying, oh, but it's okay because you're scared of it. No, you're not scared of it. You're bigoted. And I'm really sorry that happened to you, Matt.
Me too.
Awful.
Me too.
But
like, I understand if you're scared of a shark, it's going to eat you in one whole bite. You know what I mean? I understand if you're scared of spiders, some of them are very poisonous and can kill you. I understand if you're scared of snakes. Again, some of them are poisonous and can kill you. Heights, yeah, sure. You can fall and die. like,
Don't be scared of the gays. We don't all get
they're
glitter.
not going to murder you. Like, they're more likely to be murdered. That is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you know, all this stuff is taught. I mean, the reason why people are scared of snakes and why they're scared of this, heights, that, and the other is because it's all it's a response, and it's a kind of fight or flight situation. And that's why people are scared of the things that they're scared of, because we had to like dodge those things at times. I remember watching a science video about it. So that's come down from like generations from above, or it might have been learned. And homophobia and transphobia, it's learned.
Yeah,
it's been learned.
It's learned and it's taught.
It's taught, yeah, exactly, and taught that like these things aren't okay. And
I mean, I've never felt myself go, ooh, gay person, I'm terrified.
yeah, or
I've never been in that position, you know. I mean, sometimes Tom's freaked me out a little bit, but
it's happened.
it's nothing to do with his orientation. Like,
yeah, but the rainbow behind him does not freak me out. Do you know what I mean?
we love a rainbow.
It's true. Yeah, man. Oh, sorry. I'm feeling angsty. I'm feeling angsty after that. I've completely forgotten where I was gonna go with my point there, because all I can think about now is just that this is where I was gonna go with it. It's about learning, and although we can distill it down to you teach the young people this, and that's what they learn, and that's how their lives go. Like life is a learning experience. Like I learn every day, and it's about having a more open mindset generally, I would say. I'm not saying that you have to be a complete progressive left-wing, save everything that you possibly can, the world's wonderful person. Because the world is...
Not that last bit. I'm not that last bit.
But I don't understand from anyone's perspective how you can ever not want to continue to learn and continue to grow as a person. I'm stubborn as fuck, but I love to admit I'm wrong because it gives me the opportunity to learn and to grow. And I think that's the mindset you need to teach to children, because then they go, okay, that's fine. And we're not, to clarify, we're not criticizing teachers here. We're criticizing the system in which teachers are based.
We love teachers. They're underpaid.
Yeah,
pay them more. And nurses, and everyone in healthcare professions. Pay them more.
Too true.
Sorry.
I mean, you know, teaching is a lot more than just a teacher in a school. It's
absolutely. They can only deal with the system that they're given.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there are also some factors in that system that they are given that aren't exactly great or very progressive, I might say. There's also a lot of other factors as well as to why they can't teach some things because of other things.
You know, actually, on that point, I've never kind of talked about this explicitly before because I was a bit ashamed for a while about it, but actually, I just, do you know what, fuck it. When I first moved to London, so I've lived in London now for almost 4 years. Maybe my maths is bad. 4 years, wherever. I moved down here in like 2017, and I was very lucky that when I moved down to come to drama school, I had a job lined up. I'm not going to say who it was with. I'm not going to say who the employer was, but that specific job was a challenge because I was working with young people. I have specific ways I work with teenagers and young people. Zoe will know because she was one of those teenagers at one point 10 years ago. You're not a teenager anymore. But to me, when you're working with young people who are aged in that kind of 14 to 18, 19 bracket, they want to talk about sex and sexuality and explore what that is. And you need to, as an educator, give them a safe space to do that. Absolutely. So in this particular job, we were doing a script that had the phrase, the rainbow spectrum in it. And I will never forget, as long as I live, the boss at this particular place edited out the phrase, the rainbow spectrum, from the script. And I didn't know what, like, I was so flabbergasted. I was like, okay, I understand you're editing out language, fine, whatever. They know how to swear, they're teenagers, they do it every day, but fine, we'll accept that. but you're editing out something as simplistic as the rainbow spectrum, a really healthy discussion point with young people. And you know, we came to blows, and eventually I was sacked from that job. But ultimately, that was based on the fact that that teaching experience for me could not be what I felt it should be in terms of educating young people. Because that's the conversation they wanted to have. They wanted to do Rent. Are you kidding me? You can edit out Rainbow Spectrum and you want to do Rent? No thanks. That's just not this. What?
I love Rent.
It's funny how they also wanted to do Rent when it was literally, you know, you got everything in there. You'd have to edit out quite a bit of it to be able to.
Yeah. You may as well just throw it out.
Yeah, if Rainbow Spectrum that really was like the last straw, then maybe you should look at the musical. But the musical gives out so much information and so much education to people. So again, that's another tangent, but it's funny that they had to edit that out to think that that would make it okay. And
that's it.
Like, why can't we?
It's the premise they're going to be questioning stuff on, so I don't see how editing that out is going to make any sort of difference.
Exactly.
You know, in that particular situation, not enough scripts were printed for the kids, so I ended up having to use some of the scripts I had there. So some of them saw that the line said the rainbow spectrum, and some of them didn't. So of course, then it becomes a conversation, and it becomes a further conversation to say, why was this edited out of our script? And you go, well, I mean, I just have to assume that the person that edited this, won't name any names, has a problem with it. And then of course the kid's going to be, what's the rainbow spectrum? I don't get it. And then you unpack that.
And why is there a problem with it? Like,
exactly. Suddenly they understand, oh, there's a prejudice here. Like and that's what it is. Prejudice. It's not a phobia, it's a prejudice.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I feel like I'm so ragey tonight. Why am I so ragey? It's because it's hot. It's so hot.
It's not bothered. Everyone's got a lot of pent up anger. That's why.
I actually feel pretty nice today. I'm not gonna lie.
You are literally the sunshine in yellow.
Hi. I've actually got my Rent script sitting right over there. I'm not gonna lie.
We did Rent together, Zoe, years and years ago now.
You want to see my butt? No, not my actual butt. I've got. Wait, hang on.
Are we gonna get chucked off YouTube? Oh, love you, Bohem.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was fondest memories during Rent, especially. Well, but I love you, but fondest memories during Rent.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Is that, you know, this was the point we were all making there. To teach a generation, you have to be able to learn yourself.
Absolutely, and be willing to learn.
Yeah, 100%.
I was not always this open-minded. I will fully admit I was not always this open-minded about everything. And it wasn't that I had prejudices, it was I was confused. I'm still confused, but that's just like a daily thing for me. I didn't understand how, because I'd never been in that position where I felt like I'm not being the person that I meant to be, mostly because my BPD doesn't allow me to know my identity. That's another conversation. I never felt like I need to come out as a certain sexual orientation, or I need to come out as a certain gender identity. I've never had that need or that feeling inside that I didn't understand where it came from in other people. And from what I understand, I know a lot of it comes from a very young age. Some people have known all their lives. Some people have not known because they've not had the chance to know. But back then I was like, it doesn't make sense. Like, how come I'm not feeling this, but other people are? Like, it didn't register in my brain. So I was never mean about it or anything like that. But I was just like, are you lying? So like, that is literally where my headspace was. Obviously now it's completely different. I am a very liberal, shall we say, and I try to open myself up to a lot of different mindsets and how people view things. I mean, I'm still not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm not going to have all the answers and know all the things and understand everything that goes on in the world. That's just being human. But
no, exactly, yeah.
It's just having it there that if somebody wants to say, hey, this is how I am and this is how I understand things, like, sure, tell me. Like, I want to know, I want to be educated. I want you to teach me like where you see the world. and then we can have a conversation about it instead of being like, hell no, not what I like, not what I understand. You can stay over there and I'm going to pretend I'm scared of you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, it's very rightly put. I mean, if we didn't have like people like yourself that are cisgendered, that are so liberal and understanding and welcoming to anything else, we wouldn't be able to get anywhere. It would just be one voice against another. And then, so yeah. And then it's also our job and education to like educate the older generation. We talked about the younger generations, but we need to talk about the older generations too, because a lot of hate, I mean, the people that I encountered yesterday were of the older generation. They weren't too old, but they were even just, I'd say like
that kind of mid though. It's not the like the proper OAPs. It's like that one just in between, you know, like kind of 40s, 50s, 60s, like that kind of area where the older ones, yes, the kind of older ones are like
some of the older ones, like they've already
just
got
nonchalant
grave anyway, so you know they're going to be gone soon. It's the people that are 40 to 50.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I just didn't say it.
I did. I went there. But yeah, like the people I encountered yesterday, like, and also it's the people that I encountered yesterday is also a class thing as well. Because the restaurant I work in is quite fancy as well, quite high end, a lot of money, blah blah blah. But we need to educate them people. And I was standing there at work like, I'm literally being hated on this entire shift. I wasn't involved with it because I just left it because I was not allowed to say anything.
Yeah.
I just had to stand there and basically
take it. Yeah.
And I don't really understand why they thought that was a great conversation to have, because I always am in a flamboyant shirt and a like dangly earrings and all the ear piercings as well. I know we say like what you present on the outside is not exactly how you might identify and feel, but they were completely blind to the facts about what they were saying and like who they were saying it around. Like they didn't.
You were still a person at the end of the day with real people emotions, real people feelings. Why do they think it's appropriate to have those type of conversations?
And
especially in a public place, like
it's good to realize also they're having these conversations while they're out. We've been in quarantine for this whole time while they're out with their friends and they have nothing better to do than talk about all the stuff that annoys them and they're scared of. That really is an annoyance. They were talking about pronouns also yesterday and like, why is that an issue? Just put it at the end of your email. Like that's all you have to do. It's
not going to change your world.
We all put it on our Zoom
exactly
name here. Like it doesn't hurt anyone.
I always find because sometimes I do get very worried that I do misgender someone and that's never what I want to do. So I always just stick with they.
It's a safe bet, right?
It's the safest. Like if you are like really struggling and like, because sometimes I know from my perspective, sometimes I know it is hard. Like I've obviously had people in my life that have transitioned that I've known all my life as one way, and I've now had to get used to, and I have to get used to that as well. I have to make the effort to learn their new pronouns, and you know, and sometimes like I have slipped up in the past. So I always just find if you are struggling, if you are finding it really difficult, or like you're just, oh, I don't want to like do this and seem bad, just go for they, and you're gonna get hurt by it. Like,
and, you know, change is hard. Like nobody's denying that anything, any change in life is difficult, and it's something that you just have to learn to deal with, I guess. But if you unconsciously make a trip up and use like a wrong pronoun, that is so forgivable because your intention is not malicious. In the case of what kind of Matt was talking about at work there, that is malicious. And
yes, absolutely. Absolutely malicious. That was uncalled for and unnecessary. And to be like, there's a difference between being like, oh, I'm so sorry, like that's not what I meant, and just being like not accepting that this person is, because the like, God bless. Like I have a cousin who has recently transitioned. She is a transgendered female. But some people in our family still refer to her as he, and every time I'm there, I'm like, no, her. And they're like, yeah, and he, no, her. Like, I always like try and like,
Yeah.
or they do, she does go by they also, so I'll either be her or they, and just so they're, and if I keep like bouncing back, it'll finally go in their head, and it'll be almost unconsciously they'll start with the right pronouns because they've heard it so much. But it is a shame, and I do understand that, especially older people, they do struggle with, you know, finding how to go from what they've known for this long to what it is now. Like, I do understand, and there's nothing malicious behind it. There's no like bad intent with it, but they need to be open to actually using the right pronouns and not just being there with what they're comfortable with and what they've always known.
Back with the tea again, but definitely it's also our job to be able to be that person that will be, oh no, actually it is she. Like you said, definitely. I do also think it's great to always use they, but always just be mindful of like a transgender person that obviously you might call some gender dysphoria if you always are calling them.
Yes, of course.
They want to be called she or he, or even just a person of the.
Yes, when I say like use they, I mean like first time, and then they can
definitely
pronoun. Like if you're worried about that first time or the first couple of times, and then or just say, hi, I'm really sorry, I don't know what your pronoun is. Would you mind telling me? Like, I don't mean anything by it, but can you tell me your pronoun, please?
You know what? Exactly. And this is why I think the thing at the email, or as you say on our Zoom names, which is, you know, what, like less than 10 letters, whatever those letters are, it is just helpful. That's all that you can look at it as, because it saves you asking the question. And if it's not there, there is nothing wrong with saying, what pronouns do you use so I get them right? That's just such a
it just shows you care. It shows that you are interested in who they are as a person and what they identify as. It shows that, you know, you want to be right with them instead of just like tiptoeing around it. The more you tiptoe around it, the more uncomfortable people are going to feel. But if you're just straight up, hi, what's your pronoun? Like, you know, puts it in their Twitter bios and their Instagram bios and stuff now. Like it's just, it's okay to ask someone what their pronouns are if you're not sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes, so as we kind of touched on a couple of things there, that obviously, you know, we are speaking from relative perspectives. We've not delved deep into things like gender dysphoria because it's not something that is an experience that I've personally had or
myself
know a lot about. I guess we've talked about that kind of exploration, but feeling like you're physically in the wrong body is a whole different aspect that I personally would love to hear someone talking about, but I have never experienced that, and I'm the wrong person to. So when we're kind of saying have these conversations, yes, have these conversations, say your piece, but this is what the kind of theme of it all is about willingness to learn, really, isn't it?
Yes, because there's stuff that Matt, you've gone through that Tom and I will never understand, and Tom and I will never know because we've never been in that position. There's stuff that you both have gone through that I will never know, like, because it's and there is also things that I've gone through that you guys will never understand. Like, it's just it's how life is. But if we're,
I would put money on the fact that I will never give birth to a child. I'd put money on it.
Same. Oh wait. Oh damn.
Oh, so pay up.
But
before we
it's just facts.
Facts. You transitioned me so perfectly there. So according to a report in 2015 that was taken in the US, I know we're all in the UK.
What?
35. Surprise! Hey, girl. 35% of 28,000 of transgender. Hey, I'm going to start again. According to a
Words.
report
Use your
that was taken
words.
in 2015 of transgender people that identify as transgender, that is, 35% of them identified as non-binary. And I think that's just such an interesting fact. Clearly, change is happening in the UK. When we had our census earlier this year, non-binary was an option that you could put as your gender identity. Yet, it's still not a legal term in the UK or in other places as well. Obviously, there was a big petition. I'm losing my words. You can tell that we're rounding up. Petition earlier this year for the UK government to acknowledge non-binary as a gender, and they denied that. So yeah, I'm quite interested specifically, Matt, in your opinion on all of this, I guess.
I just spilled my tea. I'm spilling my tea.
Please, spill the tea.
On my tea.
We're about to get into it. I mean, I personally, I was very happy to see that in the census that non-binary was a option. And the first time I ever done the census, I didn't have to ever put down something that I wasn't, like male, female, or anything like that. So I was really glad to be able to see, like, I can actually identify myself on this legal document. So that was great. But then, yeah, when all this petition stuff, I obviously signed the petition and said it to all my friends and everything else. And then in the UK government, they said, no, we don't understand that. We don't see that. And it angers me to so much. I can't even like put into words, you could tell by my stuttering. It angers me so much that the government can't even see that we want to be seen and that we want to be heard and we want to be able to identify ourselves, so we don't ever feel like we're stuck in kind of box that we may all feel like we've been stuck in. I know I've definitely felt like that, because I was always told, especially at like drama school, oh, you look like a man, so you're gonna have to look like one and act like one. And then for the government to say that as well, it's just basically a kick in the face, and something needs to be changed and done about that, because it feels like if we're not moving forwards, we're just saying either in the same lane or going backwards. And to me, that's just not good enough. Definitely, yeah, so something needs to be changed about that. And the only way to change it is so that we can have these conversations and get everyone together that feels the same, so we can always progress and make the change, so everyone can be on the same level playing field, so we can actually like live our lives actually happily, instead of being constantly put into these lanes or binaries, if you want, that we're always put in. So that's basically how I feel about that.
And from what I understand, the government is meant to be a voice for the people, but...
And as we all know, that's not necessarily all the case. As the sign flipped around. But we saw it when, like, the HIV epidemic and the AIDS epidemic, and like the government didn't care. People didn't care. Like, it had to be shouted in their face until someone said something, until someone picked up that first brick and threw it at Stonewall. And then finally we get, what, 1 month now, which is really great, but we need more than that now. And putting a rainbow, as much as we love it, putting a rainbow as your logo. If you're a big company, like, please do try to help all year round. Please do try to push whatever needs to be said. If you have a platform, use it. And that's definitely what I will try to do. And everyone can do their own little bits in every other way. So try and sign them petitions. If it will come around again, because I'm sure someone will start it again. So yeah, we just got to all keep at it and just keep on trying pushing it forward.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. But yeah, basically, in short, it's bullshit what the government's just done, and ignored the fact that all that stuff has been going on, and sorry about it, but also not sorry about it, because
because they're not.
No.
Yeah.
They're absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Mhm.
I mean, I think, just in sort of rounding up thoughts, which Matt kind of did so succinctly there, I think there was something that you, Matt, said right back at the start, which is no one is trying to change what gender is. No one's trying to say that you can't be a man and you can't be a woman. You can be, that's fine. We just want a world that accepts that there's so much in between. And there is clearly a spectrum. We look at autism like a spectrum. We can look at sexuality like a spectrum. The Kinsey scale has been about a lot longer than any of us have. So let's look at gender in that way too. And that's not going to break down your world of what you identify as. It's just going to make other people's world easier.
Yeah.
And
Zoe,
that's
wrap it up. What's your parting words of wisdom?
My parting words were, and that's the team. So also, I just want to bring up the fact that it has been it was the anniversary of the Pulse shooting. 12th. I just want to quickly bring that up and pay my respects to everyone who did unfortunately die in that incident. Just since it is Pride Month, I just wanted to swiftly get that in there.
No, thank you for that. I mean, we highlighted in last week's Dangerous Dialogue why there is a Pride Month and why there isn't a straight Pride Month, because
there should not be.
Yeah, I mean, there's 11 months of the year of that, 12 arguably, people still die because of their sexuality, and we're talking about gender, not sexuality today, but we've touched on both. But people still die because of their gender, and it's not necessarily because you're part of the queer alphabet or you're kind of questioning things. In some countries, it's distilled even further down to you're a woman, and therefore. So I think there's a lot to be said for why these months exist, and exactly what Zoe's just said, kind of about what happened in the Pulse nightclub. These things still happen. So yes, positive change. Have an open mind. Have these conversations. And if you're watching this in time, because it's obviously on YouTube, so you can be watching it anytime, on Friday and Saturday, the 18th and 19th, the wonderful Matt, who's below me on my screen, but could be anywhere on your
He's below me on my screen too, and I like it.
I'm just quickly. So Matt's alter ego that we heard about earlier, that Queen Bev, is going to be performing at our queer cabaret in the Bread and Roses at Clapham. You might also see me tinkle on the ivories and maybe don a microphone at one point. So there's some exciting things to come. Zoe, I'm so sorry that you're at the complete opposite side of the country.
I know. Just fly down. I'll just fly down. It's fine. I'm coming down. I'll see you tomorrow, yeah? No, I can. If I could, I would. I would. I'd be down in a heartbeat.
Oh no, I know you would. But yes, thank you so much for people that have watched this or will watch this, and your kind of continued support. And thank you so much to Matt and Zoe for being so open and honest about kind of this topic. I think we all say bye now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed